Welcome to the most passionate content for card collectors on YouTube and possibly the whole entire internet. As usual, I am your host, Jake Roy. 90s Bball cards here on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and at some point maybe a little bit of TikTok as well. I keep promising. Again, we're in the new year. I haven't cracked in there yet, but maybe we'll get there. We'll see. So today I'm answering one of the questions that is probably the most asked question that I get, or some variation thereof. So whether you are new to collecting or you know somebody in your life who may be interested or may be looking to get into cards, this is what we're talking about today. So how to get into cards, how to start collecting, beginner's guide to collecting cards 101, all those variations thereof. We're talking about getting into cards, and I thought, what better way to answer this question than to actually talk to somebody who is curious about cards and has a little bit of a background, but doesn't really know too much and is thinking about getting into the card world. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm sitting down with one of my good friends who is thinking about getting into cards, answering any questions that they have, and hopefully through this you will also either find the information that you're looking for as you're looking to get into cards, or you're going to get the information that you can pass along to the people that you know that are looking to get into cards as well. We might even do a little bit of a follow-up, so stay tuned to the end and see what we have in store coming up. So let's jump right into that. Shatara, been way too long since we've had a any sort of conversation thanks to COVID. So how are you doing? Thank you for jumping on, first of all. I really appreciate you kind of being a guinea pig for what we're going to do tonight in this conversation. But how are you doing? I mean, this is 2020 has been probably the craziest year, and 2021 is off to just a rip-roaring start. So how are you doing?
I am doing surprisingly well. The introvert in me has loved not having to leave the house, but the extrovert in me really wants to go on vacation. So I'm kind of teetering on that. I really need this to be over like next week, but at the same time, I really don't want to have every weekend jam-packed with events again. So. But other than that, I'm sticking it out. I am a homebody, hermit crab, go through a lot of bottles of wine, but
there you go. I'm a wino myself. I got some rosé here tonight. I always enjoy a nice little glass of wine with any guest I have on. So,
well, I would have known that. I switched to water. I drank wine before this, but here's my water toast to you.
I got some water too. I have to balance out, otherwise. Might be a little bit of a different conversation if I just do straight wine for the night, So, but if you feel like getting a glass of wine, feel free to go grab one at any point.
I need to cut myself off so I don't start slurring the rest of this.
That could be a whole different kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so you were saying you're looking forward to going on vacation sometime. So, whenever we can, if you could pick one place to go, it could be reality. This is where you're planning on going, or it could be a dream vacation. Where are you picking for vacation?
Oh, that's a question. There's so many places. So my goal is actually to hit every country in the world at least once. I am 14 right now. So I am, there's, I think 129 countries. So I'm a little behind. But if I could jump on a plane right now, I would probably go to New Zealand.
Ooh, all right. Not what I was expecting. I was expecting like Turks and Caicos or.
No, I love the Caribbean. It's beautiful, but I want to experience something different. I want to experience a different culture. I want to learn the history of somewhere that I wouldn't necessarily read in books in school. And New Zealand just has such a beauty to it. And I don't know. If I could probably live in any country, it'll probably be New Zealand too, honestly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, along with that curiosity of new places, I think that's probably what is, getting us together to have this chat about,
cards, and so I know, kind of, segueing from New Zealand to money. I know
Money to travel.
exactly. You need money to travel, and sometimes those investments can help pave the way for that, right? So I know I saw you shared on your Instagram recently, sharing some of the investments that you've made recently. So, and I know for all the collectors watching, we're not going to get too far into the investment in cards conversation, but I think that, that could be a nice little entry point for somebody who's new or interested or curious about cards, who's also got a background or some interest in, more traditional investments. So can you share with me what what has been your investment background, or what have you been doing with your extra money?
Okay, so I have always been interested in the investment world. Um, I recently, and by recently I mean within the past 2 years, have realized there's so many different pathways in the investment world. And it's not all about the stock world.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that you can do rather than just taking a lump sum of money and putting it in a stock until you retire. Um, so I started off with long-term investments maybe about 5 years ago, and I started doing fractional investments instead of buying whole stock because
Mm-hmm.
I, complete transparency, did not have the education fully around the stock world to really understand exactly how money can grow, inflate, deflate, what the changes in the market are. So I started with small amounts that I wouldn't miss per se. Over the past 2 years, specifically since COVID hit,
Mm-hmm.
I have had way more time to look into the world and really understand exactly what investing is. And it's not just investing your money, but it's also investing your time and finding a passion as well. So one of the reasons why I was excited to jump on this chat with you today is because it's so evident that cards is a passion of yours.
Mm-hmm.
You made it into something that was maybe just a hobby into something that has a great platform. So that is what intrigued me about the investing world as a whole. And I'm just ready to learn now that I have time.
Awesome. So with that in mind, what have you heard about cards? I mean, obviously you've probably seen some things that I've posted, but whether it's through my channel or other platforms, have you heard any, headlines about cards, or what is your what are you coming into this conversation with for knowledge on cards?
Step below beginner, that would be me. I know very little. I know that there are collectibles. I know that there is different sport collectibles. I do know, I mean, I remember Yu-Gi-Oh cards growing up and Pokemon cards growing
Mm-hmm.
up. I never really partook in it, so I don't fully understand the inner workings behind it. But outside of knowing that cards exist, that's where I am.
Okay. All right. And that's a great place to start. At least you know that they exist. And it's funny you say, Pokemon. So are you familiar with Logic, musician, rapper?
Oh, mhm.
Yeah. So he started getting into cards in the last, 7, 8, 9 months, and he bought a Charizard card, so one of the more popular Pokemon, for I think it was $250,000. And today I think that card is probably a $400,000 card. And I'm kind of talking off the top of my head. I don't have these numbers in front of me, so somebody might flame me in the comments and be like, "You're an idiot." But I think those are the numbers. So just to give you, one point, an example of, I've been seeing in the last year, not only are there some people coming into this, just in general card collecting, not just sports, like you were saying, Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic and Pokemon as well, that have deep pockets, and some people who have like major followings outside of sports or, entertainment. I think LeBron James and Giannis, so if I start throwing terms or names around that you don't know, just say, hey, Jake, calm down a little bit.
Don't worry.
But LeBron James had a rookie card recently that sold for north of $1 million. And then when somebody asked him about that rookie card, he said, "Oh yeah, I think I have a couple of those." So people are waiting with bated breath to see if he posts like what he actually has. Like, what does he mean? Does he have the $1 million cards? Because there's only 23 of those in existence. So it's been interesting seeing some really groundbreaking people get into cards. So I guess to start, we talked a little bit about sports and non-sports. So if you were thinking about any sort of cards, what would interest you most? Is there a sport or player or personality?
I probably would follow more basketball.
Okay.
So basketball was the very first sport that I ever played, that I watched. I was a Knicks fan, keyword was, and
some rough years there.
Yeah, it's been a tough couple of years. So that's probably the sport that I could relate to most, and understand who the players are. But when basketball started falling off, I started picking up football. So I understand the football world a little bit more. And basketball probably would make the most sense to me, in secondary NFL.
Yep. And have you seen the movie Soul? The new Disney?
No, but I actually was going to watch it this weekend and fell asleep.
Okay, well,
when you do this weekend.
as a former Knicks fan, there's a very quick scene in there that you might get a kick out of. So I won't give anything away, but something that made me chuckle. It doesn't have anything to do with the plot, but it made me chuckle a little bit. So I'm sure we'll chat once you see it.
Yeah.
And it's always funny. Sometimes the cultural things that'll pop up that get us chatting. Like I know we were talking around Beyonce's new album dropping and our reactions to that and stuff. So it's always. I'll be interested to hear your reaction to Soul. I liked it a lot. So
I'll let you know. We got 48 hours for me to stay awake long enough to watch it.
I'm sure you'll find some time there.
Yeah.
And if I remember from our days in college, you have a little bit of an affinity for comic book characters. Am I remembering correctly?
An affinity, possibly. I have dabbled in the Marvel world a bit. I have definitely fallen off since college years. I think I was more interested in college years. Adulting just hit me hard, so a little ashamed.
I hear you there. I mean, the real world hits us hard, once we can't have, every weekend just, figuring out which club we're going to go to. It's a little different, right?
Or even days. There's Wednesday night, there's Thirsty Thursdays, there's we
have a name for every week, every day.
Yeah.
We won't get down to those memories. That's a whole different conversation we could go through. I need to get Ya down here so she could. So for everybody watching, actually, so like I said, Satara and I know each other from college, but actually my wife was her mentor. I think it was your freshman year, right? In our junior year.
Yep.
So we unofficially
sophomore year, she was also my mentor.
Yeah, she just kind of like had a whole group that she just hung out with. So I think at that point you guys were just a group, just friends hanging out with an excuse through you and me.
Yeah, You and Me was the introduction platform, but then it just continued after that. So exactly. It was a very necessary platform that helped us in many, many ways.
Absolutely.
Throughout the year.
Shout out to Miss Bogle if she's watching.
Yeah, Miss Bogle.
I haven't seen her in too long.
She's doing good. I have her on Facebook.
Yeah. I mean, I check in with her every so often, but need to have her over to the house again. COVID,
Yeah.
She lives too close not to see her. But anyway, yeah. I digress. We'll have to send this to her. See, we're linking up and sharing it on YouTube.
Yes, she'll love it.
She will. So thinking about basketball, so you used to be a Knicks fan. Was there a player or, what made you like the Knicks? And what made you turn from the Knicks too?
Okay, so in all honesty, I was a bandwagoner. I was a Knicks fan because my family was a Knicks fan. Secretly, I liked the Lakers. I had 3 Lakers jerseys, which I wish I still had today. One of them was a Kobe jersey. R.I.P.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you go through those points in life where you're just like, I'm not going to wear my kids' jerseys anymore. And I donated them and now I'm regretting it.
Right.
So yeah, I was kind of a bandwagon Knicks fan. I started actually liking them on my own, but I more secretly was more of a Lakers fan.
Okay. So would you say you're a Lakers fan today?
I actually don't watch basketball at all.
Oh, you're breaking Ya's heart.
It's solely because I don't turn my TV on anymore. I try to be active in what is in front of me. So during COVID times, I've been doing a lot more research. I took some online classes. I started researching the investment world a little bit more. So very rarely do I even have the TV on. Before COVID times, I just was never home. So if I was that had the game on, then I'd watch it, but I wouldn't go to a bar to watch the game.
Yeah, that makes sense. And a dirty little secret. So I don't watch that much basketball these days either. I follow it very closely, but most of the time I'm, busy with the kids and stuff. But when the Lakers are on for the playoffs, and Ya's a Lakers fan, she's like, oh, we're watching this game. And she also, huge Kobe fan. So last year was a rough year. In fact, when the news about the helicopter crash, when I found out, I was like, I'm not going to be the one to break it to her. So I waited until she found out on her own. And then she's like, did you know this? I was like, yeah, I heard earlier today, but I wasn't going to be the one to tell her. Don't want to be the bearer of bad news. So
nobody wants to hear about that from anyone or read about it.
Right, exactly. But in terms of cards, it's made me that much happier to have some of his cards. It's like a little piece of, a time capsule to remember him through, which is, that's one of the fun things that I find with collecting is I look at the card and I can like pour into, I've got a Kobe card right here. I can, pour into like all the details on, what year this was, what was happening, what shoes was he wearing, what he was wearing the number 8. He wasn't with 24 yet. It's like this little moment in time capture that I can go back and relive and revisit as many times as I want to. And sometimes, when tragedy strikes, it's nice to be able to kind of go back to those better times with, those memories of those folks. So that's one of those things that's a lot of fun. And then I get to, just say to Ya, hey, I'm going to get this Kobe card and it's really for you. And, I can just spend whatever no.
Because it's for you, there's no cap.
Exactly. And it's going to be a good, good card to have for a long time. You're going to really like it. Yeah, no. I wish that was the case, but not so much. So you talked a little bit about Kobe. Was Kobe like your guy growing up?
Kobe was my guy. Kobe was my go-to. If I didn't know what was going on a court, you look for number 8. That was my strategy.
There you go.
Yeah, everybody else, it was just like they were additives to Kobe in my mind. So it was easy to understand the game. If Kobe was having an off day, the team was having an off day. And why were they having an off day? So that's kind of how I watched without being a full-on basketball fan, being a bandwagon fan, I guess you can say.
Okay. That makes sense, yeah. And I mean, Kobe, again, getting back to cards, it's an interesting thing to watch his card prices since his passing, because there's a rookie card of his that I have off getting graded that was I was being asked about my thoughts on the future of that card. So that one of the conversations that a lot of people like to have is like kind of almost like picking a stock with a card, right? And you got your blue chips, which are your best players, your Jordans, your Kobe's, your LeBrons. Those are just kind of like your Apple and your Amazon stock. They're expensive, but they're going to be pretty safe investments, and they're going to continue at least retaining your investment, if not building on it. But I was asked about some Kobe rookie cards, and I was like, yeah, I don't really see them moving a whole lot. This one has been $10 for years. And then, literally 2 weeks after I was having that conversation with a person, that the tragedy struck, and that same card, people were, just striking on people's emotions at that point. That same card all of a sudden started selling for $200-$300. So it was like, if I had wanted to, I could have, 20-30x at that point. But my estimation was, okay, that card's going to settle back down, and it's going to probably be like a $30 card, which still, if I bought it for 10, 3x isn't too bad. But today, that card it did go back down to about 30, and then it has continued to steadily rise. In fact, COVID was, just like with the stock market, one of the best things that happened to the card market. And that card right now, it's with PSA, but ungraded, it's about a $200 card. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I'm sure with some of your investments, you've just been like looking like, wait, I got in at what price, and where are we now? It's a
world where it's just like, I'm gonna get in, and I'm gonna enjoy it while I'm here, and if it works, it works. If not, I still enjoy the ride.
Absolutely. Well, and like you were saying, putting in money that you feel you can do without. If I throw $100, if I throw $50, if I throw $10 at this, some investments, $10 isn't even going to knock on the door, right? But I can do without the money if it all goes to, if the company goes belly up tomorrow, right? If the CEO gets embroiled in some sort of scandal, and that's one of the things that I've seen with some cards that I've bought. I know before we got on camera, I was talking about the Steph Curry card was one of my best pickups of the year. And, Ya and I both love Steph Curry. And this is one of so there's, we're kind of jumping around here, but one of the premier sets for current basketball cards is Prism. So, the shiny stuff, that's what people like to see. It's supposed to kind of be like what was called a chrome product. So, if you think of the chrome on your wheels, but this card I picked up last year at the beginning of the year for $7. And last I looked, the last one that sold on eBay sold for $150. And at some points it's gotten up to $200 or $250. In all transparency, I didn't buy it thinking it was going to be a $200 card. I bought it because I said, I like Steph Curry and I want to get this card before it gets too pricey for me, right? So and I wonder if you've seen the same kind of thing in your investments, where you start to kind of get a feel for, I think there might be some momentum building behind this. Have you, kind of gotten to a point where you feel out something and think it might be time to jump in?
So when I very first started investing, I actually blew it, to be honest. Okay. I was just following what the trend was. Mm-hmm. You have to bear in mind, when there's trends, everybody's trying to get in on that same trend, and eventually it's going to start to go down again. So you may have bought a card at $30 and you're like, oh, it's going to keep going up, it's going to go to $150, and then the price drops down to $10. So you just lost $20.
Right.
So I made a lot of mistakes in doing that same thing. And as an investor, I learned to put money into things I believe in, things that I actually have interest in. So you are a Steph Curry fan. Ya is a Kobe fan. So even if the value doesn't go up in time, you're still a fan. So there's internal value for you. So I have been learning to do the same thing with stocks and investing in stocks that I believe in the future of. Of course, I want to make the most of what I'm investing in. So
Absolutely.
I'm not invest in a company that's going to belly up, even if I believe in their strategy. But I think that's the biggest part of learning that I've had over the past couple of years. Not to just follow what's going on. I mean, the cryptocurrency world, everybody's just like, oh, Bitcoin is at what? Let me get in right now. It's like,
Right.
You're really going to put $41,000 in for a single Bitcoin right now? Is that the smart thing to do? Because if you look at the history of Bitcoin, it started off in 2003, 2013 at $6. In 2016, it went up to $14,000. 2017, it dropped down to $6,000. And then it started shooting up in 2020. You don't really know what's going to happen, but if you believe in Bitcoin and you believe in the whole cryptocurrency world and you do research behind it, then you are as upset when it goes down. And you're not as likely to make just impulsive decisions.
Mm-hmm. You know, and that rings absolutely true with cards as well. In 2020, like I said, the market has been booming, right? And it's easy in any sort of financial market to pick a winner when everything's going up, right? When you've got a bull market, anything you touch, it seems it turns to gold. But then when the market starts to dip a little bit, it's like, okay, what's your reaction going to be? And how are you going to come back from that? Or are you going to ride out the waves? And I have one story about that where, so I don't know if you heard, I had done a live stream. This was about 2 years ago. There was a Jordan card that sold for an all-time high at that point in time. So it was $275,000 for what's called a precious metal gem Jordan. So it's a Jordan card that they made in various colors, and they only made 10 of it in green. So there's only 10 of them in the world of Michael Jordan. But there's a version that doesn't have that green color on it, right? So there's what we call a base version. So the green would be considered a parallel because it's the same design, right? So like I have, let me see, what do I have here? I've got like two cards here that the same design, but different colors, right? So this one's green and this one's gold. And then there's a base version that's silver, right? So the base version that's not numbered to 10, like the green one, was like a $5 card for a long time. And my brother is a Jordan collector and never had that card, never really cared for it, but eventually said, okay, I think I want to get it. So I told him, hey, I'll pick it up for you. So I got it for him for $5. And then that green version sold, and everybody started looking at the more affordable options because they said, I don't have $275,000 to put into this, right? Like you're saying, they're not going to be able to pony up to that trend. Not that it can really be trending when there's only 10. So that card started jumping in price. So all of a sudden, what was a $5 card became a $20 card, and then it was a $100 card, and then it settled down to like $50. So my brother, having that card that I got him for $5, says to me, "What do I do? You know, it's $50. Like, do I keep it? Do I sell it?" And I said, "Dude, I'd sell it. Like, just like you're saying, that trend's going to crater. It's not going to go back up. I'd move it into something else that you believe in, that you like more. You liked it for $5. I don't think you like it for $50, but there's something else for $50 that you probably would like." So he sold it. And then I don't know if you were watching any of the Last Dance documentary that came out during COVID. All cards, but especially Jordan cards, took off again. And then in the last couple of months, another one of those green Jordan cards showed up on auction, and did significantly better than the one a couple years ago. I think last I looked, it was over $900,000 that card sold for. So yeah, so close to $1 million. So the base version now went back up and started selling for $200 and $300. And I saw some people start buying at $300. But just like you were saying, that trend all of a sudden started slow down. And I was talking to somebody and they said, I wish I had listened to the people who were saying, all the traditional advice, don't buy at the peak of the market, the trends are going to slow down. But it's getting caught up in that hype, that momentum seems alluring, but it's like, yeah, are you going to buy Bitcoin at its peak right now? Or are you going to wait when it goes down a little bit? The same thing happens. And I want to say it's the same for any financial market, but I think the sports card market is a little different in the sense that things can happen in the world that directly correlate to sports cards. The Last Dance, that documentary is coming. You might think it's going to have an impact on cards. And then when it's realized, you feel like you're on top of the world. I knew a lot of people were taking victory laps saying, oh yeah, I knew it. I bought all these cards and I sold them, for 10x. But I think that's one of the interesting things too, that you can see real world things play out. I mean, LeBron James is playing right now. What happens in the season is going to impact his cards. It's a direct correlation. Yeah. But the retired players, it's interesting to see, like, how do they stay relevant? One of the guys that I know I've talked to people about, that the jury's still out on how collectible his cards are, but I've picked some of them up because I like the story, is Colin Kaepernick. So there's also things you can get into that aren't necessarily just players or people that you like because of their athletic ability. Tim Tebow is another guy that some people like collecting because they like Tim Tebow and they like what he stands for, or they like, just the guy he is. They think he's a good role model. So I think there's a lot of different avenues that you can get interested in a person and their cards.
Yeah.
Just like a stock.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really great point. I mean, I've watched a couple of your videos over the years, and seeing snippets on Instagram whenever you went live or posted a new video on YouTube. And I never saw cards as an investing kind of platform. I always, I guess ignorant mind, is for lack of better terms, just saw it as a hobby. And it was just, you're getting cards that you like. You're getting cards that you believe in, whether your goal is to collect cards for an entire team, or collect cards for a specific year of players, whatever your goal is. But having this conversation today, I was like, I never really thought of it in this light.
Yeah. And that's a great point that you brought up, because there are all those different avenues to collect. There are some people, like you were saying, if you just like the Knicks, you don't care who's on the team. You just like the team. Maybe you hail from New York, or, whatever the correlation may be. There are people who just, they collect that team. Or like we were just talking about, there might be a player that you gravitate towards. For me, my guy is Penny Hardaway. I always liked him growing up in the 90s. That's my guy. That's who I enjoy. But there can be a million different reasons that you pick the team or player or the set, like you were talking about. And it's funny because I think you know a little bit more than you're letting on. Because some of the things that you're saying, it's like you get it. The year you could pick, like I was showing you this Steph Curry, you can pick this year, and I want to collect this set, right? So all the cards from this year in this set, because in this year it was made in 2012. There were about a dozen other sets that all look different. They have different designs. But
do you mean that the shiny?
Yeah. So like this, I don't have any other 2012, but like, for example, like this card is from a completely different set in a different year as well, right? So it's obviously it's a different player. I'm trying to think of a better example. Well, so here we go. Here, I've got a bunch of cards. I was like, okay, I need to get everything that I can show an example of, and now I'm like, okay, I wish I brought more cards. So here's the 2012 Prism, right? I was telling you about that. That's that, year. This is the 2019 Prism, right? So it's the same set, the same kind of theme. It's got that shiny feature to it, but it's a different design, So that's what they'll do each year. they'll have a number of sets that will come out, and they tweak the designs, but they keep the same theme usually to each of the cards. So Prism is like the set to get. That's the highly anticipated set because people like all the shiny stuff. And the other thing that they do with those, here's where I was a little bit prepared. So they will make them. So I was talking about the base card. So this is the base card. It's chromium. This is one of those parallels. So we were talking about the Jordan green. So you see how it's kind of like rainbow finish. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is more rare than the base card, right? And then you might have, in Prism they do this a lot, you've got this one, it's green and rainbow. So this one's more rare than the first rainbow one that I showed. Okay. So these are parallels because it's the same basic design, it's just got a different color to it than this base card. Okay. But then each one of these parallels, like I was talking about with that Jordan that there's only 10 of, has a different level of scarcity. They were printed to different amounts. So some of them might be serial numbered like that Jordan. Some of them, there's only 5 of them made. Those ones are going to be very expensive typically. But then the base card, like this Giannis that I showed you, is, you can pick this up for $1, $2, $5, It's relatively easy to find and inexpensive to buy. So you can definitely hone in on certain years. Maybe it's the year that you were born, right? So for me, I'm going to pick the year that I was born. I'm going to pick a set from that year, and I'm going to collect that whole set because I can kind of tell a little bit of the story of that year that I was born. Or maybe I pick the year that my daughter was born, and I'm going to pick a set and gift it to her at some point and teach her the hobby through that. Or maybe I've seen people that collect a certain parallel, right? So I just want all those green cards, or I want all the cards of a certain team in that set. So there's all those different avenues of interest that can kind of get you off to the races as far as, okay, what do I want to pick up? And doesn't necessarily have to just be based on the value of the card, because sometimes, like I was saying, you might buy a card and it's because you like the Spurs or, a specific team, but then that rookie on the Spurs all of a sudden becomes really good. And now that card that you picked up for $5, that rookie card is, he's the biggest star in the whole game. Then it looks like an investment. Yeah.
Not to jump ahead, but when you are, so it sounds like, or I'm assuming there is many different ways that you can purchase cards. You can seek out a specific kind of card. Yep. That you're looking to complete your gallery, I guess you can say, with. Yeah. But in card trading, in my mind, it's you go to whatever platform, whatever store, and you buy a pack and you open it up like a pack of crackers, and then you see what cards are in there, and it's always a surprise of what cards in there. So what do you typically do? Or do you do a mixture of both where you're looking for specific cards and you kind of do the wild card, I don't know what I'm going to get until I open it?
Yeah. So see, you're bringing right through my checklist. This is great. So you are 100% right. So you can go to stores, and there's various stores, or online and buy packs of cards. Now, so I'll show you the different, kind of the packaging, right? So you can buy a full box of cards. So here's a box of football cards from 1997, right? It's a full box. There's 20 packs in this box, right? Or you can buy just a single pack. So sometimes you'll go to what's called, shorthand version, the LCS, or local card store, or hobby shop, some people call them. And they might have those boxes that you can buy unopened, or they might have some of those boxes that have already been opened, and then you can buy the individual packs. And some people like to leave them unopened, but myself, I have to kind of control myself to not open them too quickly. So I really like that. It's like, it's more exciting than opening a pack of crackers because, once you eat them, they're gone and you know what they're going to taste like. I like comparing it to opening a new bottle of wine. that you've never tasted before. It's like an adventure. You don't know exactly what the flavor profile is. You don't know if it's going to be a good bottle or a bad bottle, just like the pack. You might open this pack and there might be a Michael Jordan card that's worth $1,000. Or you might get, a guy like Pat Garrity, who I'm sure you've never heard of, that's worth, very little. And that's the best card that you get in that pack. So you have no idea. It's like Forrest Gump said, life is like a box of chocolates. But like you said, you can go to the local card store and get those. Sometimes, this year's been a little different, you can go to Walmart or Target and you can buy them. They'll have them there. This year they've gotten bought out and you usually can't. Or you can go online. eBay is usually the best place to buy cards. In fact, this might be a little interesting nugget for some folks. The most sold categories, the vast majority of the sales on eBay's platform are made in the sports card market. So sports cards makes up the vast majority of all sales on eBay and is by far their largest segment. So the hobby I always say the hobby happens on eBay because you can buy those unopened packs, or you can go and buy the individual cards that have already gotten pulled out of the pack. So if you're looking for a specific card or a specific player, you can go onto eBay right now and type in, if your favorite player is Luka Doncic, he's, a young guy, I'm not sure if you've heard of him, that has only been in the league this is his third year now, and he's becoming a big star. So you can go on there and type in his name, and you'll get all the cards that have been produced since he was first in the league that are for sale right now. And you can pick whatever you want to, if you want a rookie card, if you want, any of those sets that we were talking about earlier, whatever you want is there. Or you can go and buy a pack, and you're just going to get, a pack of 5 cards or whatever come in that product, and rip it. And, who knows what you might get. You might get, a great card, or you might get just, some run of the mill cards, or you can get a whole box and get, a large number of packs in that box. And, then see what's in that product and see what you like, and buy more if you want, or buy we call, when you're buying the individual cards that have already come out of the pack, we call it buying singles. And then when you're buying the individual packages or the boxes, we call it buying wax. Because back in the old days, the packs are actually made out of wax paper. So a little bit of a history lesson there. So the easiest way by far to buy any of those is on eBay, just because you get it shipped right to your house. You can find just about anything you're looking for, and you don't have to worry about it really being sold out like will happen at other stores. It's just a matter of finding the price that you like.
Okay. So another follow-up question. Is there, obviously YouTube is pretty much a go-to for anyone who's trying to learn anything from a base level. Do you guys tend to have kind of like any groups that you talk about, like what may be trending, what you found that you personally find really intriguing? Maybe it's just a $5 card, but you're just really happy that you found this specific player. Do you guys typically do that, or is it kind of just more of a broader platform of communication?
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways we can go with that. So YouTube is one of the places that there's starting to become a lot more content available where you can go and learn. And one of the reasons why I wanted to sit down and have this conversation is to answer the questions that you have. To kind of serve as that 101 level, right? Answer those questions that somebody who's just kind of scratching that itch or just starting to get into it might have. Because there really isn't one place to go to that has all the information. And even if there was, it's very easy to kind of steer people in the direction that I want you to go in. So I like these things, or I may have a vested interest in you liking these things that I do, and steering you in that direction. So, because a lot of it is really subjective to what you like and what you're interested in. But there are some basics, like what we've talked about, and like what I'm sure we're going to get into as we keep going. That there are some people who have tried to kind of consolidate that information, but it also changes from time to time. So it's hard to keep that current and relevant. So there are some websites that, Cardboard Connection is one of the websites that has a lot of information. But at times, even myself, being in the hobby since the 90s, it can be overwhelming, for me to even find what I'm looking for. There's so much information. There are some people who have tried to create courses to go and, people can go and purchase the course and learn about cards. But then at the end of that, you don't have any more cards than you do when you started. You have some more information to go get cards. It kind of can be it can, smoothen out that learning curve. But the best way to learn, from my experience and from what I've heard from other people who have gotten into it, is going onto eBay, just like looking at the stock market, right? Getting into the different platforms that you can go and monitor the markets. You don't just have to go to Yahoo Finance to look at it. There's other ways to look at it. And seeing what cards are selling, what cards, you can kind of pick, okay, I'm interested in LeBron's. What are LeBron James rookie cards selling for? You can go and see the different rookie cards, then start seeing how much they're selling for, and start, kind of picking it up in little bits. And then you'll start seeing some trends. You'll see, okay, the Topps rookie sells for a little bit less than the Topps Chrome rookie. And then you can start digging into that. So really kind of dipping your toes in and looking at the markets. And at first it's going to look like Greek. As I'm sure, when you were looking at some of your investments at first, you were like, like you said, you just looked at what other people were doing as far as trends. And sometimes that wasn't the best. But once you start to be able to look and see what interests you, that's when you can, okay, now I think I'm ready to pull the trigger. But then other than that, like, social media has become one of the best water coolers really for conversation. So Instagram, there are, I can't even begin to guess how many people are on there just talking about sports cards. Twitter has a lot of people, but I think Instagram is really the platform that most of the hobby uses. Facebook does as well. And as far as like groups where you can share your interest, I've found a lot of that on Facebook. So if you're interested in a certain player, sometimes you can find kind of like fan pages that are like card focused for that player. Let's say Tim Duncan is a player that you like. There's pages that are just focused on Tim Duncan cards, and they'll share sometimes, hey guys, we all collect Tim Duncan cards. I saw this card is for sale on eBay. I think it's a good price. I already have it. If you guys want it, here's the link type of thing. So some of it can be like helping you find things you're looking for. And sometimes it'll be like, even as simple as like a poll where it'll be like, hey, which card do you like better? If they're both the same player type of thing, which card do you like better? And then you can kind of see, okay, out of the 1,000 people in this group, 90% of them like this one card the best. And maybe it's a new card to you, or maybe you're like, okay, what am I missing here?
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
I never would have thought of it in that way. I think I still have a very siloed tunnel vision of kind of what our endless opportunities are.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of just creating groups. So in the investment world, I joined a group that we kind of just talk about what the trends are. Mm-hmm. And the leader of the group, or the host of the group, would say, hey, I'm going to put a call on this for this date, and I got it at this price. Feel free to follow along, or you could do whatever. Obviously, you could do whatever you want. But this is what I'm going to do. Feel free to follow. And that's kind of what my thought process was in the card game as well. So with Kobe, obviously nobody planned for that tragedy to happen. Nobody foresaw it happening. Everybody knew that Kobe was a legend. Everybody knew that he was going to be someone who's going to be in conversation very long after his retirement, similar to a Michael Jordan. But like you said, having a card go from $10 and spiking into 5-6 figures. I mean, who would have known?
Right.
Who would have known? And it's, I as we keep having this conversation, I'm so intrigued about the world even more, the trading card world, and I'm really interested to see who in my friend group may have started off in this world and
Mm-hmm.
felt maybe because of lack of education around it. Maybe they were just collecting cards because that's what they did as a kid. I know you said that you started in the 90s.
Yep.
So my next question was going to be, how did you start? And when did you really start taking off? But I mean, in everything you do, every hobby that you do, there's people who they grab onto it and they just keep running with it. And then there's people who grab on and then they let go for a little bit, and then they jump back in and then they let go for a little bit.
Yep.
So I'd love to hear kind of what your experience has been from back in the 90s to now.
Yeah, so absolutely. And it's funny, the vast majority of people like in our age group, right, that I talk to have a very similar story. And it's interesting because everybody's coming from different walks of life and different entry points, but we all have very similar stories. So I'll start with kind of the run of the mill story, and then I'll give my specific story. So just kind of the Cliff Notes version is, again, this is probably 90% of people that I talk to on a regular basis. Started collecting as a kid, whether it was just you or your dad got you into it, or you had brothers and sisters that were doing it. Started collecting as a kid, stopped collecting, or slowed down collecting around high school because you're either playing sports or you're trying to get dates. Definitely not collecting during college because you have no money and you've got other interests in studying and everything like that. And then a lot of people, their parents eventually say, hey, come and get your old cards. I don't want these things taking up space in my house anymore. You got your own house. And you start digging through them. And all of a sudden you start saying, oh, well, I wonder what this is worth now. And I remember I used to, and then you start getting the itch again. And then you're saying, oh, well, I didn't know that I had this card and it's worth this. And now I think I want to get more of them. So that's kind of like the very abbreviated version of 90% of the stories. You start as a kid, you dip off as a teenager, you come back to it because you're kind of, having to for one reason or another, and then you just fall right back into it. And my story is very similar, but I'll give some more detail to it. So as a kid in the 90s, so my older brother started collecting baseball cards, and he was dyslexic. So my parents, I don't know if it was, intentional or they just kind of fell into it, used that as a mechanism for him to kind of overcome his dyslexia. So he really learned how to read better, not completely, but with cards, and learn numbers and stuff like that. So it was a tool for him that he really enjoyed. So my dad would help him, and my dad never collected cards or really had any sort of interest in it. So I don't know. I would be interested to talk to my brother about his story of the origination story of him. But so he collected, and there were card shows in the 90s, and they're starting to pop up again, once COVID's done. I'm sure there'll be more. But where you could go and there would be, people in that town that would set up in, a gymnasium somewhere or, various halls, and they would all display their cards and they would trade and sell and all that kind of stuff. And you could go there and, see, 15, 20 or 100 different people selling cards. So they brought me a couple times. My dad offered to buy me a pack. I was offered packs of cards that today, are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases. And I decided to get a pack of Fleer Ultra X-Men cards because I wanted the Wolverine. And I didn't get a Wolverine, but I thought they were cool looking, and I threw them in a box in my room and forgot about them. And then in the summer of 95, there was an Olympia Sports that opened up. And one of their promotions to get you in the door was, if you come in, we'll give you a free pack of cards. So I came in one day, got a free pack of cards. My brothers came with me. We all got them. A couple of friends that lived near us came with us. and we all open these cards together, and we're all looking at them, and now we start trading them, right? Oh, I've got this player, I'll trade him for this player. So then I said, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to go back tomorrow and get another pack of cards because this was kind of fun. And then I went back every day that they would have let me get in there. And eventually they'd have to shoo me away because I'd try to get, I try to go in there multiple times a day and get multiple packs of cards. So, as many cards as I could get from them for that little promotional period, I would get. And then at that point, I was, completely just overwhelmed with all the fun I was having. So, found shops near me as a kid. We would go, all my allowance money would get poured into cards. I would go to Ames department stores, which aren't even a thing anymore, and buy cards with my allowance money. And then I, had friends that also did the same thing. We'd trade cards, and, we all knew who each other collected. So I'd put all the cards for Mitch over here, and all the cards for Zach here, and all the cards for Joe here. And then they'd do the same, and we'd exchange cards. And then, in high school, we still collected, all of us together, but it was a little bit slower. I played basketball 9 or 10 months out of the year. I had 3 different teams I played on, so that consumed my time traveling and all kinds of stuff. But still was interested in cards and still would get cards, as often as I could. And then college, my story in college, I wasn't collecting cards. But what I would do is on the summers when I would go home and there weren't any clubs in New Hampshire to go to, I would go to Walmart and get some cards to open. I would usually get like a box of cards, like I was showing that football box. I'd get like a box of cards each summer and open them and kind of, relive some of the fun and just relax with those. So wasn't as strategic with it. It was just something that was kind of fun. And I wasn't even really organizing them. I would just kind of put them in the holders and put them in a box, and that was that. So throughout the rest of my early career, I would do the same thing, probably like 1 or 2 boxes a year, just to kind of scratch the itch of childhood. And then my parents were moving and said, hey, come grab all your old cards. We don't want to have to move these. So I started digging through my old collection. Like I said, my guy in the 90s was Penny Hardaway. So I started looking at my Penny cards, and I'm like, I want to finish my collection. My goals as a kid, I never reached those because I didn't have my own money and all that kind of stuff. So then I started looking into Facebook groups with other collectors who liked Penny Hardaway. I started looking for the cards on eBay. And then, the rest is history, as they say, because that takes us up to today where I'm doing the same stuff and making YouTube videos on top of it. So, that, again, kind of the same type of story where you do it as a kid and then dip off as a teenager and come back. But a little bit of nuance there in my story.
That's awesome. Is your brother still into it, or did that slow down?
So that slowed down. In fact, so my older brother, his cards are sitting at my younger brother's house because he just doesn't have space for them. And my younger brother is like, you got to decide what you're going to do with these, because either, you can sell them or you can move them to wherever you are. But so that's a little bit of a bone of contention between the two of them. But truth be told, a good portion of my cards are also at my younger brother's house, just because, he's single with no kids and I have 2 kids running around, and who knows what they'll do to him. So I keep some of them here that I want to hold near and dear to me. And then, a large bulk is sitting at his house as well. So his house has a room dedicated to cards, much to his chagrin at times.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Yeah. So what would you recommend for someone who is thinking about getting into cards now? Like, what would you say is the first thing that I should do as a beginner?
So what I like to suggest, and it's different, if this was 2 years ago, the advice would be very different than it is today. So I'll tell you both. So 2 years ago, I would have said, go to Walmart, go to Target, whichever's closer to you, and look at, they usually have a display with, some little toys and then cards, all the sports, Pokemon, everything. And I would say, go there and grab a few packs of whatever sport you're most interested in and open them up and just take a look at the different products that you can get your hands on and what do you like aesthetically? What did you have the most fun? What was the best experience, right? Because like I said, they'll have the individual packs and they'll have the boxes and all that stuff. And then from there, if you go and rip open 3 different products, right? And so like I was talking about, the Prism is like the big product now, but there's also other products. So, maybe you're looking at Prism for basketball, and you're looking at Donruss is another one for basketball, and then you're looking at hoops. So those are 3 that typically are at Walmart and Target. Those all have a different design and different insert cards. So that's another thing that's like, they're. I'll show you an example rather than try to describe it. So this is, we talked about Prism. This is that rainbow finish, right? The parallel. But then there's insert cards in those that, again, have the same theme. They still have that shiny look to them, but it's a different design altogether. And these are, I talk about them sometime on my videos. Those are inserted, 1 in 14 packs, let's say. You'll get one that looks like that, and you don't know which player it is. So from there, you can say, oh, I like these shiny ones, or I like these hoops ones because, whatever. Or maybe for me as a kid, if I pulled a good card, I'm going to like that product better. So maybe there's an autograph card in the pack that you open. So you can get cards. Like here's one I pulled actually from a Walmart. It's a card with a piece of a jersey of Michael Jordan and a piece of a jersey from LeBron James. Right? So like, once I open this, I like that product because I got a good card in it. So that's what I would have suggested 2 years ago. Now, the reason why I don't necessarily suggest that now is because it's very hard to find any sports cards at Target or Walmart. Because the market's been booming so much, there's so much demand for those unopened products that people they'll rush to Target as soon as they stock the shelves. They'll buy all of them. So let's say a pack was like $5. They'll take that pack and they'll put it on eBay. And because everybody's trying to get it, they'll say, I bought it for $5. I'll sell it to you for $15. So there's a lot of money that they can make kind of just flipping it right from there. So because there's so much money and there's so much demand, people are willing to spend $15 for something that originally was $5. It's very lucrative for people to go and kind of clear the shelves. So it's harder to get those products than it was in prior years. Now, what I would say today is you can still definitely rip the product. You're going to have to spend more than I would like somebody to have to spend getting into it, but that's definitely a very fun way. I love opening wax. It's not always the most efficient way to spend your money in the hobby, because again, a pack can be $5 and you might get 5 cards in that pack and not a single one of them is worth $5, right? So it's not necessarily, but sometimes you can open that $5 pack and get a card that's worth $100. It's a gamble, and that's really what it is. It's a slot machine for cards, but it's a good way to kind of dip your toe in and see what you like. But you're only gonna get a very small snapshot. So the other thing I like to suggest to people is pick either, like we were talking about earlier, a player or a team that you like, and go and look at cards. It's easier to do, I think, with a player. Go and look at cards of that player and see what looks good to you. So it's the same type of thing, seeing what looks good to you and then seeing what that costs and what kind of money are you comfortable putting into it. So let's just run through a scenario. If you're going to buy something right now, right? So let's say you've got, I'm going to make some things up for you and then I'll let you make a decision. Let's say you've got $100 that you're willing to put into cards. Do you want to buy a single card or do you want to buy a product to open?
It's a bigger gamble with a product to open.
It is.
So I do that.
Okay, so we're gonna play the risky game. All right. So then from there, what I would typically ask you is, and this is where it's key to kind of look at those cards to see what you like, which is why it's easier to buy multiple products. So I'd say, okay, what kind of things do you want to look for? Do you want autograph cards and jersey cards in your product that you open? Do you want shiny cards that have some rainbow finish? Do you want a lot of rookie cards? If those are your 3 options, which one would you pick?
I like shiny.
Shiny. Okay. So from there we narrow it down to the 3 that I'll suggest are Prism, which we talked about. There's another product called Optic. And then there is another product called Select. Those are all shiny cards. And each one of them you can buy a box of. Now, there's actually another layer that I skipped over. Do you want cards that are of players that play today, or do you want cards of older players from the 90s or the 2000s?
I like the idea of players today because it's more of a gamble for in the future.
Absolutely. All right. So there we go. So I would say go ahead and look on eBay for a box. Let's say a blaster box would probably be the best way to use $100. So a blaster box of Prism, Select, or Optic is what I would say. And rip that open and see what kind of fun you have. And if you think you like one of those products, right? If you open and you're like, this is really fun, then I would say, okay, let's go and look at something else. What was the most exciting part of it? Was it just opening the packs? Was it a specific card that you pulled? So then kind of talk through that. So that's kind of the process that I would suggest somebody do now. Like I said, and the reason why I'm cautious to just say go and buy something on eBay is that blaster box that I'm saying you could spend $100 on. In all honesty, $100 might not buy you a blaster box of Prism these days. But at retail, if you can be one of those lucky ones that stumble upon it, those blaster boxes are like $20. So you could buy like 5 of them. That's why I'm saying if it was 2 years ago, you could go in there, you could buy 3 blasters of 3 different products, and your $60 got you a lot more than your $100 did today. But the entry point, I think, still is the same either way.
Fair enough. That's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I do on my channels. I rip packs open most of the time. I haven't done as much in 2020 because it's getting pricey at times to find the stuff. But that's also why I like ripping product, because I can show people not only here is everything you can get in these cards. So like, we were talking about shiny cards. I just opened a product. These are very shiny cards from the 90s that are still pretty affordable because, it just isn't as popular as other stuff.
So is that considered an Optic?
This is actually an old product from 1999. This is Topps, who doesn't make basketball cards anymore. This is called Topps Gold. So I have, let's see, where did I have it? I have a card from, this is an Optic, but it's another shiny product. This is called Hoops Premium Stock. So you see it's also shiny, but this one has they call it laser. So you see those like lines in there.
Yeah.
So that's another one of those shiny products that it's actually a brand new product this year, and Santa put that in my stocking because he's a nice guy.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So another question for you. Say it's 2 years ago. I got a $5 pack and I have a bunch of cards that aren't worth $5 in there. I'm kind of answering the question as I'm thinking about it and saying it out loud. So you look at the cards that you have, you realize maybe they're old school cards, maybe they're players that only had a couple years on their team or whatever the case may be. And you go onto a website, a Facebook page, and someone just happens to be looking for that well-known player. How often does that happen, or do you typically just hold on to those cards and just see where it goes?
Yeah, so in that case, if it's a new product, right? If it's something that was, from this season, I do 3 things. I take a look at the players that I got, and I see, like you were saying, is there anybody that collects this player? So like I just showed you this card of Kendrick Nunn, right? That's the guy on this card. So I would see, is there anybody out there that collects Kendrick Nunn? And maybe there's none, pun intended. But if there aren't any, then that tells me, okay, there's probably not a market for me to be able to sell this card. It probably doesn't have much value. So then from there, my options would be I can either keep it and hope that Kendrick Nunn becomes an all-star, and then people will start liking his cards more, or I could, and this is one of the things I do with a lot of the cards that I open on the channel, I can donate them. So there's a lot of charities for kids that will take sports cards as donations. And sometimes there are schools. So my sister-in-law works at a detention facility for minors. So it's kind of like a correctional facility that they've gotten into trouble, but they're trying to, make sure that they're not going to get into trouble in the future. And there are some kids there that like cards. So I'll give her a box of cards and I'll say, here, these are for the kids. And they'll use them as kind of like a reward system. If they like getting those, they'll give those to the kids. So, I don't necessarily suggest somebody that's new give their cards away because they're just learning. So that's why I would say, probably keep it and see what happens, especially if it's a new product, because it's hard to tell sometimes. Like I was showing you the card of Giannis. So he was the MVP of the season, MVP of the league. But when he was drafted, he was a nobody, essentially. Like he was, I wouldn't say a nobody. He was a relatively high draft pick, but they weren't sure if he was going to be a complete bust or if he was going to be good at all. So a lot of people that had his rookie cards that they pulled, they got rid of them. And today, a rookie card of his sold a couple months ago for over $1 million. So,
Wow.
And the person who got that picked it up early in Giannis's career for like a couple $1,000s. So they're feeling pretty good. Because I think it was a young kid too. I think it was like a 16-year-old kid who made $1 million off of that. So kudos to him. Can you imagine being 16 and selling one of these for $1 million? And what are you gonna do with that?
I literally would buy so many beef patties and just live life. I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Right? Like, it's unbelievable. I mean, congratulations to him, because, boy, what a great story. But yeah, so that would be my suggestion. Hang on to him. Hope that the guys become Giannis, and you can make $1 million in a few years.
Okay, awesome.
What other questions can I answer for you?
Let me see.
And if you don't have a question, that's fine, because I have a couple of topics that I think are pertinent.
Well, the question I have, I don't know if you could really answer, because COVID is it's different. None of us have experienced a global pandemic before. And
Right.
It's hard to really predict where this world is going to go next year or so. Because I'm just thinking in terms of like comparing it to investing in the stock market. I currently am investing in areas that I know are going to boom no matter what the economy is doing.
Yep.
So is there kind of a similar trend within the basketball, or just, excuse me, the card trading world? Or is it kind of you just ride the wave? We may be peaking right now because everybody is just running and grabbing as many cards as possible.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes back down, like, how do you see that coming back up again?
Yeah. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, like, what are the safest bets, the safest ways to use your money? Yeah. So one of the safest, this is I would correlate it to buying an index fund, right? Is literally buying a box of cards and leaving it sealed. That's the safest way to use your money in the hobby. Also, like buying an index fund, it's the most boring way to use your money in the hobby. Because, great, I have this, it's taking up a bunch of space on a shelf or somewhere, and I'm going to keep looking at it and say, what? I bought it and I hope it goes up someday, right? It's not as much fun, but it's definitely a very safe way to use your money. Second to that, the next safest way is buying cards of players that are all-time greats. So we've mentioned Kobe, Jordan, LeBron. Those are just three of the guys, but those are three of the main guys I would say are the safest way to use your money. And there's various price points for both boxes, as well as those players. Safe to say, if you are going to buy, let's say, a Michael Jordan rookie card, that's one of those that I would be willing to say you shouldn't see a negative return on your money for that. At a minimum, it should stay the same. There will be peaks and valleys just like anything, but over the long term, you'll be safe with that card. But that being said, and this might get us into another thing. So a PSA 10 recently sold for north of $200,000 of a Michael Jordan rookie card. So while it's safe, it's also pretty pricey to get into because it's so safe. And so in that, what I was saying, so PSA 10, there you can get these cards. So I've been showing you a lot of cards that are just what we call raw. This is the way it came out of the pack. I threw it in a little thin sleeve to protect it. But you can send them off to a company and have them grade them based on condition. And then that grade can make that card worth significantly more. So a Jordan card that's not graded a Jordan rookie card, I should say, is gonna be a couple of $1,000s, right? Or if it's a low grade, if it's not in great condition. But the 10 is worth over $100,000, $200,000 is the last one that's sold. So those grades can not only tell you what condition your card is in, how good a condition it's in, but it can also kind of make it a little bit more valuable. And a lot of people who are investing in those individual cards or picking them up as investments, that's what a lot of folks are doing is buying them in a high grade. They grade on a scale of 1 to 10. And the 2 I could show you. So I mentioned PSA. This is a PSA graded card, right? So what you'll get is you'll get the card, and then it'll come in this plastic holder. It's a hard plastic, pretty hard to break into, but you can do it. And then up here there's a piece of paper that will it'll give you a little description of what the card is, and then over here it'll give you a numeric grade on a scale of 1 to 10. So PSA is one of the big ones, and then the other one is Beckett or BGS. So this is a Beckett graded card. And again, you got the card in there, you've got a thick, hard plastic case that it's in, and then you've got the same thing up here. The interesting thing here is these for Beckett. We're getting into some of the nerdy stuff right now, so stop me if I'm going too far. But they'll give you what we call subgrades. So I don't know if you can really see, but you see a big number 9 right there, right? That's the overall condition. It's a 9 out of 10. But then you've got smaller numbers here. So on very specific features of the card. So they grade it on centering. They grade it on edges. So how good a condition the edge of the card is in. They grade it on the corners. So specifically each corner, how good a shape the corner is in. And then they grade it on the surface. So are there any scratches or fingerprints on the surface of the card? And those 4 subgrades together will get you the overall grade. Now, PSA doesn't give you the subgrades. They just give you the overall grade. Okay. So this one's also a 9. I don't necessarily know why it's a 9, right? They're not telling me, oh, it's because the corners aren't perfect, but everything else is. Whereas Beckett will tell you it'll break it all down as far as, okay, this is why this card's a 9. Oh, I can see. Yeah, you say that the corners are a little bit off. I can see that now. So those are the 2. There's a lot of other companies that grade cards. I don't recommend using any of them other than PSA or BGS. There's one other company that's not bad, SGC, but I don't have any examples of them. So okay. That's another little nuance that if you're looking to get a single card, get a graded one so you know what condition it's in, and they also authenticate it. That's the other thing to watch out for. There are fake cards. People will make reprints, so the Jordan card being a $200,000 card, people will make fake versions just like a piece of art and try to sell it as the real deal. So if you get one that's graded, that company is standing behind the fact that it's the real deal and the condition of it.
So when you're going on eBay and you're looking for specific cards, you would probably go for the graded cards rather than just the loose cards in that case to make sure that you're not getting gypped?
Yeah, if I was new, so if you're looking to do it tomorrow, I would say, yeah, if you're gonna sink a good amount of money into a card, get one that's graded so you know exactly like you said, you're not going to get gypped. Now, for once you've been in the hobby for 20 years, no, it doesn't take that long. But once you've done it a few times, you kind of get a knack for being able to figure out which ones are real and which ones aren't. And again, if you're spending $5, $10 on a card, the likelihood of somebody making that card, a fake version of that card, is significantly lower because what are they earning off of that? How much are they putting into making it? It's really the higher price card that people are gonna and there are a lot of shenanigans that people try pulling with those higher price cards because there's a lot bigger return on that scam. But it's like any other investment. It's like buying a used car or buying a piece of art. I mean, even some investment vehicles, Bernie Madoff and a lot of other investment gurus have led people astray and put their money into, basically thin air. So it's like anything else. That would be the safest way.
Okay.
If you're going to buy a single.
Good to know. Good to know. So, would you recommend this hobby as a good gift for like kids? So obviously we're at the age, I mean, you have 2 kids yourself. I just have a fur baby who's sleeping right now. But but we're at the age where everyone around us is having kids. So is this something that you would recommend to start kids off early on, or do you think it's more fitting for maybe like the middle school age where they may have a little bit more of a understanding of the world and more respect for the cards?
So yeah, I think it's great for kids, but you're right. There is certainly an age, and it's specific to each kid, right? Not every kid's the same. Some kids at the age of 7 or 8, they can take care of something. They can, I was definitely not careful with my cards as a kid. I started when I was 7 years old was when I started, and those first cards that I have are destroyed, and some of them are lost and all kinds of stuff. But I also wasn't getting cards that had a lot of monetary value. So it was good kind of, it's almost like riding a bike with training wheels. But I think by the age of like 9 or 10 years old, kids are definitely capable of collecting cards. In my experience anyway. I have seen kids who are 12 or 13 that have collections that put mine to shame, like unbelievable stuff. So it's really a lot of fun seeing other kids, what they get into. It's incredible. And I really do think it's a great hobby for all ages, but kids definitely. I mean, I was talking to one of my friends that we grew up collecting together, and we were just sharing like all the different lessons in life and business that we learned through cards. You learn negotiation. When I'm trading a card with you, you learn what's fair. If I try to trade a card to you and I make up a story about it and it's all fictitious, and I got him, I gave him this $3 card and I made him think it was $100 card, and I got $100 card back from him. Well, eventually that's going to get back to me. It's going to backfire, and I'm going to, lose a friendship or whatever the case may be. So you learn a lot of those lessons. And it's a fun way to learn them too. Now, in my experience, 99% of kids aren't trying to rip each other off, but you figure out, and you can also learn, marketing through it. You can learn just different aspects of business transaction. You can learn investment lingo. There's a lot of sites popping up now that they're actually providing analytics, financial analytics behind cards. One of them that I use and vouch for is Card Ladder, where you can go in and they'll show you, for a specific card, a very specific card, what's the last time it sold, how much did it sell for, what are all the historical sales of that, what's the ROI of that, if I paid, X amount, what is it projected to be if it sells again? So if I have a card that hasn't sold for 2 years, They have algorithms that can project what that may sell for if it came up for sale in a year. So a lot of that stuff in a lot more traditional investments is already built out. This is definitely a maturing market, which is exciting, and it can be a little bit risky. It's exciting because it's like you're getting in on something new before all the savvy investors get into it, and there's a lot of savvy investors that are starting to get into it. But it's not regulated like the stock market, so that's the risky part. Is it can all go to zero or something. But yeah, so sorry, getting back to the question, I think it's good for kids to learn a lot of lessons. You also learn simple things like organization. How am I going to organize my cards? Where am I going to store them? You learn just how to take care of something to make sure you don't damage it. Because it's not as easy to tell them, be careful with grandma's china vase, because there's only one of them in the house and she's not buying another one. So, that card you can replace a little bit more easily than those delicate things. So there's a lot of, that's just scratching the surface of the lessons. The other thing too is just like building friendships. It's a great way to meet new people and, find a common interest that, I can go and talk to just about any collector. It doesn't matter if they collect the same thing as me. They don't even have to collect sports cards. They could collect Pokemon, but we have something in common. So there's a lot of things for kids, but like I was saying, there's some big money in this hobby. So it's also great for adults who are more savvy or have more discretionary income to put behind it. And, they can make appropriate decisions as well. In my experience too, you can collect as a family together. So my daughter's open packs with me on the channel, and as she gets older, if she's interested in cards, I'll be happy to show her the ropes and do all the collecting fun things together with her.
Oh, awesome. I'm trying to think of, I'm starting to run out of like birthday and holiday gift ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I have a lot of children in my life, so I'm trying to add to that list. But yeah, this is awesome. I like the idea that it's not just something that you're buying. So like, yeah, you could buy a Frozen doll for your daughter,
mm-hmm.
And she's gonna play with it for a little bit. Maybe it'll be worth something in 10, 15 years. Yep. Chances are it won't.
Right.
But there's a difference with cards. It's even if you get a pack for kids and they're into it for a year, and then they stow it in a box somewhere, and then college comes along, adulting comes along, you come and you find the cards, and then it's back to your passion. So I like that idea, where it's kind of like you said, it's a teaching experience, and you could start them off young. So that's all.
Awesome. Yeah. Any other questions you can think of? I think we hit on, you, and like I said, I think you know a little bit more than you think you know. But there are a lot of correlations between traditional and, and I say traditional, there's a lot of things out there, like we were talking about cryptocurrency, that's not necessarily a traditional investment, but it's regulated. But, I think if you got in, like you were saying, you feel as though you're what's below a beginner, I think you'd be further along than you'd think if you started tomorrow. So.
All right. Maybe I did. Yeah.
You should pat yourself on the back. Brush that dirt off, right?
I actually owe it to you, because I would have never thought to even have this type of conversation. I was never into cards growing up. I was into playing like actual like king, jacks and queen cards and playing
mm-hmm.
goldfish, but that's pretty much the extent of cards that I really touch. So this is a world that actually grabbed my attention, and I actually owe it to you, because following you on Instagram over the years helped me. Maybe I'm not watching each of your YouTube posts from beginning to end, because a lot of it will be
yep.
But even catching your lives every once in a while and getting a snippet of you and Gabby opening a pack, it just opens the world up to something that I would never think to look at. And that's kind of the same thing in all things investing. A lot of people just think of an index fund. Maybe they just think of long-term investments. Maybe they're just thinking of a 401k and not an IRA. And there's just so much for us to learn. And why not learn a little bit about all of it and then make an informed decision afterwards?
Couldn't say it any better. Absolutely.
That's the wine talking.
Absolutely is. Okay, so, well, as always, if you have any other questions, I mean, I think we covered a lot. I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel like, you know, I'm swimming in, in more information than I know what to do with. But, you know, it may be in, you know, the days, weeks, months, if you have more questions, maybe we jump on and kind of do a follow-up, or, you know, always DM me. But I think, do you have any other, you know, top-of-mind questions on cards and collecting and investing in cards?
No questions right now. I didn't realize how much I knew, so I appreciate that little eye opener for me. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to look into a little bit more. Like you said, right now everything is trending.
Yes, absolutely.
So if financially that makes sense for me right now, especially as a beginner. If I had a couple years under my belt, this would be a different story. But I am actually going to have conversations with other people around me about it, because maybe they started it in the past and maybe they already have a little gold mine going on that can further the conversation even more. So
yep.
I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And actually, one quick thing that I was just thinking of that I didn't hit on that you mentioned before is education. And learning is the key. And I think, so I don't know if you are familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk.
No.
So he's pretty big on social media, but he was into cards as a kid and got back into cards again recently. And he was advising his, you know, millions of followers that if you want to get into cards, I can tell you what cards to buy, but it's just my thoughts. You need to go do the work. And he was saying, in his estimation, it takes at least 40, but probably closer to 60 or 80 hours of learning before you're really ready to jump in. So, you know, you go 1 hour under your belt. No, you get a lot more than that. But
I'm going to be a pro by next week.
I think you're right. I think you're there. So this has been a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that we were able to do this, and it kind of came together, you know, very organically, but very spur of the moment, which is all the more fun. But one of the things I failed to prep you for is one of the things I like to do on any sort of guest appearances. All my episodes, I ask a question of the day. But when I have a guest on, I like to ask my guests if they have a question of the day for the audience. So it can be anything. You could even ask them, you know, what their favorite kind of animal is. It doesn't have to be about cards. But would you like to? You don't have to, but would you like to ask a question of the day?
All right, give me a second to think what question I want to ask. I'm typically not very good under pressure, so.
You can even ask my most embarrassing moment, and I could have to. No, let's not do that.
No, I won't do that. All right. I am going to take the quarantine route and say my question of the day is, when the world fully opens back up, what is the first thing you're going to do?
All right. Well, so drop that down in the comments. What's your answer? When the world fully opens up, we can go out, not wear masks in the stores, not have to worry about any sort of COVID, whatever number we're at. What would you do? What would be the first thing? So I'll answer. I think you had mentioned at the beginning you're looking forward to most to go on vacation and hopefully to New Zealand.
Yes.
So I would say for me, and I was talking to Ya about this, you know, the last couple of days, the thing I'm looking forward to most is going out to dinner with my wife. So that's something we both need, some time away from the kids and some, just relaxation time. And, that's one of the things we like doing most. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And right now it's just not safe for us to do it. So even just dinners at the house, just the two of us, it's not the same. I want to get out and do it.
Yeah. It's not the same when your waiter and waitress are toddlers and
we are very lucky that we have a lot of family very close to us, so it's not uncommon for my mother-in-law to say, "Hey, I'm taking the kids for tonight," which is nice. But it's not something that we expect, and it's like I said, it's still not the same as being able to go out for dinner. So
yeah,
we'll get there soon.
Fingers crossed that 2021 is a full 180 of last year, and
absolutely,
we will just continue to prosper in many aspects of life.
I love it. No better way to end it. Thanks, Satara.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for your time.
I hope you had just as much fun watching that conversation as I had having it. And yes, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, Satara was not just feigning interest just for to be kind and do a favor for me. We had a conversation, long after we got off the phone and recorded that conversation. She is genuinely interested, and she knows some people also that she's going to be talking to about cards. So it wasn't just, kind of made it to be looking like she was interested just for my sake, which I would have appreciated either way. But no, she's genuinely interested, so I'm planning to have a follow-up with her later on to see what other questions she might have as she starts diving in, and maybe we'll even sit down for a conversation once she started buying some cards, or see where she is in the process in the coming weeks and months ahead. So a lot of fun. I'm really excited. It's always fun to bring more people into the hobby, but especially when they're people that I already have a close relationship with. It just makes it even more fun when I can be driving around doing errands and pick up the phone and we can chat about cards while running to the grocery store, what have you. So always fun to add another person to the repertoire to have that conversation with. So a lot of fun, really excited for where this may go. But as always, thanks for joining me, and if you stuck around to this end of the conversation, I'm really appreciative of that. So please let me know if you have any questions, any comments at all. I would be more than happy to answer them. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss any videos in the future. New videos like this will always drop on Wednesdays, pack openings, looks into my collection, and the like. We have some exciting stuff coming for the rest of the year. Next week, I'm already very excited about next week's video, so stay tuned for that one. No spoilers yet, but you'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks. We'll talk later.